All right, guys, welcome back. We're Graphic Novel Geeks. We're going to talk about some comic books. We have Joe Thompson from Fracture Comics joining us again, so that's really great. And we'll do a little review of Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, toward the end of our show. So, how's it going?
Hey, doing all right. Hey, viewers, thanks for joining us.
Yes,
Back.
cool stuff today.
All right, cool. So, February is Black History Month. So we want to take this chance to talk about some of our favorite Black comic characters and Black creators. Graphic novel geeks, diversity is important to us. Representation is important to us. It's like for me, I feel it's very important that everybody gets a voice, right? And that there's diversity in our life to give us perspective on everybody's life struggles that people go through and what's important to them, the values that they have. And I think having diversity in comics as far as characters go is great, but to really, get a better feel, I prefer when like if we have an Asian character that it's being written by an Asian, or if we have a Black character, it's being written by a Black creator. That way we can really hear their voice a lot better. And, I just think that it's really important that everybody gets representation. So I want to start this episode off with just a little history of some Black characters in comics. And, I'm just going to be talking mainly about Marvel and DC. So if I'm, if there's a bunch of like indie characters or underground characters that I'm missing out, I'm not really including those guys. But the first leading Black character mainstream comics is, of course, T'Challa, the Black Panther, created by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. It's first introduced in Fantastic Four, number 52 in July 1966. And I think everybody's familiar with Black Panther, right? He had a hit film come out in 2018 starring Chadwick Boseman. So great character, really strong guy. Everybody loves him. And, he didn't really, after his introduction in 1966, it wasn't until 1973 that they put him in a title, and he was starring in a comic called Jungle Action, starting with issue number 5. It wasn't until 1977 that he got his own comic title, Black Panther, and number 1 came out January 1977. Classic Kirby series, love it. Unfortunately, I don't have any issues here at my house to share with anybody. But after 1977, came out with a little mini series in the 80s, and then his third series was in 1994. So, almost like 20 years later. And with that, they really started a tradition of using Black writers to write the series. That one was written by Christopher Priest and was drawn by Mark Texeira, who was, a white dude. Then in 2005, they had filmmaker Reginald Hudlin, and that was illustrated by John Romita Jr. And that's probably my favorite Black Panther series. Fan of John Romita Jr.'s art, but also really solid writing in that. Then in 2016, a series came out written by the MacArthur Genius Grant recipient Ta-Nehisi Coates and artist Brian Steelfreeze. And I don't have that series handy either, but I do have the most recent series of Black Panther with this great Alex Ross cover. This one started in 2021 by Academy Award winner John Ridley and illustrated by Juan Cabal. And they got together just in time for the 200th issue of Black Panther. And so, for Marvel, after Black Panther, their next Black character was the Falcon in 1969, and then Luke Cage in 1972, who I believe was the first Black character that had that starred in his own title. That was followed by Blade in 1973. Another character that they had was Bill Foster. You may have seen him in the Ant-Man and Wasp movie. So he was first introduced in 1966, but he didn't become a superhero until in Luke Cage in 1975. He becomes Black Goliath, and then he got his own title in 1976. Black Goliath was created by Tony Isabella and George Tuska. And to be honest, he's a rather forgettable character, but I want to bring him up because Tony Isabella is going to come up in a moment. Tony Isabella was also writing Luke Cage, but over at DC, they started up in 1971. They introduced a character by the name of John Stewart, created by Dennis O'Neil and Neil Adams in Green Lantern number 87. And that was just like a one-issue thing. They had this black dude, John Stewart, filled in as Green Lantern. And then that was kind of the end of that. And
I think you're forgetting one person, Goblin.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Rhodey, wasn't Rhodey like back in the 60s, 70s too? Jim
Over
Rhodes?
at Marvel.
Yeah.
And he didn't get his own series till like the 90s, right?
No, but he was actually Iron Man in Iron Man for a long time.
Yeah, I think that he started a little bit later though, not till like the 80s that he filled in as Iron Man, right?
When did Demon in a Bottle happen?
Anyways,
Yeah.
This history is clearly not inclusive of every black character. I'm just trying to make a few highlights here to kind of keep it short. And really, I want to talk about my favorite black superhero, Black Lightning, who I'll get to in a moment. So Black Lightning was the second black superhero over at DC Comics, and he was the first one to receive his own series. And when he was first introduced in Black Lightning #1, April 1977, and he was created by Tony Isabella, is the same guy that created Black Goliath for Marvel. And he kind of, by doing this, there's like this groaner cliche. It's like, well, now all the black superheroes have to have black in their name, right? Black Panther, Black Goliath, Black Lightning. Okay, dude. So, but, Jefferson Pierce, Black Lightning, is really cool. He was like he trained his mind and body as a child, became an Olympic champion, and then after that he goes back to his hometown. He becomes a high school teacher, or depending on which version you read, at some points he's like as a high school principal. And this didn't come out till 1977. So they're a little bit behind Marvel in the curve of having black superheroes in general, black superheroes having their own comic titles. But they, they did come to the show eventually, right? So Black Lightning's title lasted about 13 issues or so, and then it fell apart because of a thing called the DC implosion, which was a combination of many different things. They were having just too many titles all at once, and then the economy collapsed. We hit a recession there, and DC just imploded. So after his series, Black Lightning next joined Batman and the Outsiders in 1983. A title that that they've had on and off ever since. And then next, Black Lightning follows us with Tony Isabella returning February 1995. He gets his next series drawn by Eddie Newell. Then in 2009, they have Black Lightning Year One by Jen Van Meter and Collie Hamner. And then in 2018, Isabella returns for Cold Dead Hands with artist Clayton Henry, which I think is the first time that they actually had a black creator on the Black Lightning book. So they've done, while they did a fair job of having Black characters in their universe, it wasn't good representation because it's all being written by a bunch of white dudes, right? But I guess from some perspective, you've got to get them out there first, right? And then once they're in there, then it starts becoming more normalized, and then it can come to the point where it is today. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. Most recently, Black Lightning was in The Other History of the DC Universe by John Ridley and Giuseppe Camuncoli. So hopefully I'll get to talk about that later. But, why I really like Black Lightning is that he has awesome powers. So he's got electrokinesis, he shoots lightning, he controls lightning. And, there's some other characters that do lightning, but I don't know. Black Lightning's awesome. I like him how he, as I said, he trained his mind and body as a kid. He became an Olympic champ. But then he gave back to his community by becoming a school teacher. He was fighting crime and gangs at night, but also doing that on the school ground. He reached out to troubled youth in the schools and kind of tried to work with them and mentor them. And, I just really like that kind of attitude. I like that kind of figure. They're just, like my favorites. I love it that he was helping troubled kids. And then, one one of the other reasons why he was my favorite, and unfortunately, I don't have the comic handy, but I do have a little shot of it. So in Justice League, he was bold enough to call the Justice League a bunch of jive turkeys. Now, in the Justice League's defense, it wasn't the normal team of Batman and Green Lantern. It was a bunch of like weird no-namers. But I think that's maybe the language is a bit passe or whatever. But yeah, dude, go Black Lightning, man. Talking trash about the Justice League. And I actually have my partner got me a custom JLU figure, Justice League Unlimited of Black Lightning in the JLU style. So this was like a Christmas gift for me. And, just like really awesome detail on this. One of my favorite figures, one of my favorite characters, Jefferson Pierce Black Lightning. So that's what I've got for starting in a brief history. And again, I'm not talking about all Black comic characters ever, but just kind of the early ones in Marvel and DC.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was a great history. That was awesome.
All right, cool. Thanks. So a big thing that DC did was in the 90s, they started up a company called, a little imprint called Milestone. And I believe that Joe, you wanted to talk about Milestone a bit.
Oh, yes. So just to kind of, basically everything you said, was on point. And initially, even though most of these characters were being written by like white creators, it was good just to at least get these characters out there into the world. But now Milestone was the next logical step, where you actually had Black creators completely working on characters within their own universe. So the company itself was founded in 1993. It was the team eventually became Dwayne McDuffie, Dennis Cowan, Michael Davis, and Derek Dingle. Initially, Christopher Priest was brought on to do like the Dakotaverse. That's the name of their universe, like their work on their series Bible and everything, and kind of as like head writer and editor-in-chief. But then he did leave for personal reasons. And then that's when Dwayne McDuffie was brought in, who polished that Bible so well. McDuffie's a legend. But yeah, so you have this group of guys working together, and it actually kind of started from like Dennis Cowan actually, because I recall the story. He was like I think it was like at a Comic-Con or something like that, and then he had lunch like with a couple of creators, and then he was just like, wait, why don't we create a universe of like Black characters? Like, why has this not been done before? And then they're like, oh, you're crazy. He's like, I don't know, like, should we do this? And then, then of course, that's when, the team was formed. They started gathering, essentially, I guess, the handful of Black creators who were in the industry. It weren't that many. And then they kind of put their series Bible together, brought that to DC, and yeah, Milestone was launched. The books would be published and distributed by DC. But Milestone, again, an imprint. So they had full control over the stories and everything. But DC would, they were footing the bill, and at times would kind of have maybe, I guess, final say over maybe something with printing. But they were very nervous with some of these stories that were coming out. And there was definitely some controversy, because definitely Dwayne believed, we were brought on for a reason. We, brought on to actually tell these stories properly, right? And then Dennis, agreed with that, but then he was also kind of more practical, where it's like, well, DC is still kind of paying for this. But Dwayne was kind of a little bit more like, well, no, we're going to do what we want to do. That led to some butting of heads. But before I get to that, so the titles they actually, they initially released, Hardware was the first one, featuring the character of, his name was Curtis Metcalf, aka Hardware. Brilliant scientist. I mentioned in another one of our podcasts, he's my favorite Black comic book character. And, super genius. Dude graduated at like 14 from college, and went to work for Edwin Alva of Alva Industries, who did pay for his schooling and kind of mentored him through most of his youth, and was like a surrogate father to him. So Curtis was given his lab to do whatever he wanted, money, all that stuff. And then got to the point where he was like, well, I kind of want some more money from these inventions that I made. And he went to Alva thinking, yeah, this would be cool. And Alva's like, yeah, no, you're a cog in the machine. So Curtis got his wake up call, and then decided to kind of utilize resources to destroy Alva from within and attack his criminal enterprises, and then very much being a brutal person at first, but then getting another wake up call from his love interest, and decides to be more heroic. But really, really dig that character. But what's interesting about it is when you read those first issues, and when Dwayne McDuffie's background, he put a lot of himself into that character, because this whole thing, when the issue first starts, talking about this like parakeet, how as a kid he would open the parakeet would be in this cage, then he would open it and it'll fly right to the window, keep banging its head against the window because he mistook being out the cage for being free. So it's this whole thing about the glass ceiling and everything, and about being working somewhere and not being able to achieve what the pinnacle, I guess, of what you can aspire to, which
that's a great analogy.
Yeah, which kind of sums up Dwayne's experiences to an extent. And even he graduated from college at a young age, so you can kind of see he put a lot of himself into that character. But yes, that's my favorite. So let me move on to the others. So there's Icon as well, who I like. That was the second title. Icon was a Superman archetype, but very different, an alien who crashes on Earth, except he crashes during slavery times, and then and then takes on the appearance of a Black person. And then so he literally he is Black history, literally. So he was here during slavery, Harlem Renaissance, everything, lived it all. And then present day, which was, I guess, the 90s, he's very wealthy, he's a lawyer and everything, and he's a conservative. Because he was around, when Lincoln did his thing, so he's kind of sticking to that. And he has this whole attitude of, we have to do better, Black people, what are you doing? There's no excuse. I was literally a slave, work. But it's not that cut and dry, right? And it takes Rocket, this teenager, to kind of show him and educate him a little bit. And she forces him into becoming a superhero, and they kind of work well together, and she's educating him, and then he's becoming a better person. And the whole book is told from her point of view, which, so if she doesn't see it, we don't see it. So that was pretty cool. And then the next one they did was Blood Syndicate, which was a superpowered gang. So they're tied into Static because they were affected by the gas that gave Static his powers, except they're a gang. And this book was way ahead of its time, because talk about representation, Black, Latino, etc., LGBTQ, everything, like to the point where this was in the 90s. So in my opinion, it honestly puts a lot of books today to shame. But yeah, it's really good. And then of course, there was Static, arguably the most popular series because it got a cartoon and was probably the most relatable because the character was actually a kid. He was a teenager. Everyone else in the other titles were adults. So of course, if you have the younger character, you can reach the younger demographics, and then he was obviously, a nerd, a Peter Parker-esque character. So again, kind of like breaking these stereotypes of like characters' backstories. I mean, you have a guy in STEM, right? Basically, you have a lawyer, and then you have a teenage science nerd, and then I guess a gang that is a little bit more complex than you would think. So of course they had more titles than that, but those like the initial launch. But yeah, good stuff. And then, but then eventually, there was a cover that came out with Static that kind of changed everything. Where Virgil was he's kissing his girlfriend, and then there was like these condoms that were like on the bed, or no, they were on the couch, kind of like in the background. To obviously implies safe sex, and obviously teenagers are gonna do the thing. But DC had a problem with that and really didn't want that cover to go out. And then so Milestone had to kind of like put like this I guess like border kind of around it to block most of it. Of course, Dwayne didn't like that, and things were changed kind of at the last minute, and it got out. Now his argument was, DC, they're concerned about promoting, I guess, like sex and whatnot, but then they were hypocrites because there were clearly other very much sexualized characters and covers that were being produced. But Dwayne argued that it was because it was Black sexuality. So that was, there was an issue there. So, but it got out. And then, it wasn't enough that it got out, but also like in the letter section, like Dwayne kind of called out DC as well. And I think that's where maybe he took it a little too far. But like he called them out in like the letter section. Yeah, so it's one thing the cover got out, but okay, dude, I get it. And then that's what kind of created a little bit of rift between him and Dennis. And then that's when Milestone's funds mysteriously started disappearing. And then eventually until obviously, things were canceled and the offices, were closed. Unfortunate. I respect Dwayne for sticking to his guns, but again, like Dennis's argument, we still kind of have to play ball because who's footing the bill? It gets complicated. But yeah, but obviously, Static Shock became a very successful cartoon. Mm-hmm. And yeah, kept Milestone in people's minds. And then, they disappeared for a while, but then finally made their return in 2020 with several new relaunches. So there's a new Static series now. There's a new Icon and Rocket. There's Hardware. They finally relaunched Blood Syndicate. And I believe, what's the other one they released? I can't think of it right now.
It was the one with like two characters.
Right, that like merged together. It was like a husband and wife. So they have that one too.
Yeah, I don't remember the name.
Yeah, right. It kind of escapes me. But yeah, so now they're back. The books have been pretty good. Personally, right now, Icon and Rocket is my favorite, being written by Reginald Hudlin. So that book is obviously solid. It's Reggie Hudlin writing it. Because I know I was reading Hardware, my personal favorite. I like Brandon Thomas. He's the writer on it. But Hardware is dear to me. McDuffie's version is the definitive. So I was a little bit harsher on that book. Vita Ayala is doing good work on Static. I like the family element there that they're bringing to the story, because the family, actually everyone knows who he is. So it's a little bit different than him trying to hide everything from his his parents. Pretty cool. But Icon and Rocket, like once I started reading that, it's like, oh, because like the other ones I'm kind of flipping through and I'm like, this is cool, this is all right, yeah. Then Icon and Rocket is that moment where like you sit up in your chair, like, oh, okay, let me actually give this a little bit more attention.
Yeah, I felt the same way. The other ones were all right. Static, pretty good, but Icon and Rocket, like, yeah, that's the series right there. That one really did it.
So, but yeah, no, glad that Milestone is back, and let's keep the momentum.
Oh yeah,
Definitely.
Cool.
Oh, My favorite black character. I had a hard time choosing this one actually, because there are a bunch that kind of throw in, but I've finally settled on Cyborg actually, who has like been unfortunately used in the Justice League as a lot lately, but I think he's back with the Titans now as of Nightwing 100, where he should have been like for the last 20 years. But he's such a great character. It's like he's the ultimate supporting character, I would say. None of his solo stuff has been great, but his team stuff is fantastic, especially written by like a good writer that knows how to balance between the lead superhero and the rest of the team. And he's also been involved in two firsts, in my opinion, from both from the 80s that would prove eventually super important. One was he was in the Teen Titans X-Men crossover, which is the first appearance of the Source Wall. Source Wall not created by Jack Kirby, like a lot of people think. And it's just like one of the best written DC Marvel crossovers I've ever seen in my entire life. Back when Chris Claremont was firing on all cylinders. And he starred in both of the Teen Titans drug awareness campaign books, which were, someone might have to correct me on this, but if I remember correctly, those were the first ones to actually tackle what drug addiction and recovery were like. I mean, you had that Spider-Man issue where Harry took some pills somewhere and like went, ooh, but there was nothing really before that.
The classic Green Lantern, Green Arrow storyline with Speedy. I don't know how much they got into recovery, but that was the big one with tackling drug abuse.
I love Green Arrow. He's my favorite character. And yeah, you're right. I forgot about that one. Although Speedy was involved in those too, in those Teen Titans books. But it's like, no, Ollie just slapped him and kicked him out of the house. That was just wonderful. But yeah, he's probably my favorite character. And it's like he's written well sometimes. He's just been relegated to the background for years, unfortunately. Because he ran the Watchtower over Martian Manhunter for the last 10 years.
Yeah, and I think it's a shame because, like you said, he's always been a second string character, and I think DC tried to bring him to the forefront by putting him in Justice League, and it's like, why does he need to be in Justice League to be brought to the forefront, right?
I mean, and it's like it wasn't earned, in my opinion. It's like he's a Titan. He always should be a Titan.
I agree, and they could have kept him a Titan and kept him in and put him in the spotlight instead of bringing him to the Justice League. I mean, I don't know.
Well, there was that Teen Titans Spotlight book where they finally did his origin like in full, like because they did like one for each of the 5 or 6 members, like back in '82, I want to say. But yeah, it's a shame because I don't think he's ever gotten Wolfman wrote him great, but I don't think he's gotten a great writer since Wolfman, unfortunately.
David Walker was okay.
Was he? Which one was that one? That was
I want to say, was that New 52? Because it was a Cyborg solo at one point by David Walker.
Yeah, it was the New 52, and it was okay. It didn't stick the landing at the end, in my opinion. Yeah. So it's like, but that was like a lot of New 52 titles, unfortunately. But yeah, but it's like I'd rather focus my attention on what Matt has to say, actually.
Well, I mean, did you still want to review your comic books first before I go into mine, or do you want more about what we're talking about right now?
We're talking about characters, I think, which I think works.
Oh yeah, I mean, I like John Stewart a lot. The Green Lantern was the construction guy, right? So his all his constructs are like tractors and stuff like that. I thought it was really cool in Blackest Night. I don't know if you guys read that one in DC, but he became a Indigo Lantern, compassion. So I thought that was really cool. The one character that I recently saw more of was before Wally West came back. Wallace, is he West? The new Kid Flash. He was a teenager, and when I first started reading him, I could tell that it was written by a white person. You know, it's very stereotypical. Like, you know, he's a troubled youth and he needs that adult white figure in his life to straighten him in the straight and narrow. I was like, and then he was talking like in this stereotypical lingo, like, yeah, son, you know, punk, and I was like,
oh no,
I didn't like that. I didn't like that. So I kind of didn't read that for a while. You know, didn't pick up comics for a while. I wanted to though, but I didn't. But I recently started reading it again with the new Flash, and it's actually better now. It seems like he's written more as a character, talks normal. You know, they call him Ace. So Wally West and him actually work together, and the dynamic is actually really cool. So I think they actually got that better. I just hope they keep that momentum and don't, you know, default to stereotypical stuff. I also like Power Man, who's, you know, Luke Cage. You know, him and Iron Fist, that team up. That's a classic team up right there.
Yeah, for sure, man. That's like the dynamic duo part 2.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, there's Power Man and Iron Fist kind of fall with that was I mean, unfortunately, a lot of the black characters that we all love come from blaxploitation cinema and the Asian exploitation cinema of the time, and it's like,
Yeah,
I think there was a point that, like, in the history of comics, it's like there's not a lot of original ideas that comics use because they follow trends a lot of the times.
always follow trends. No, always follow
Yeah,
trends.
for sure. You know, I read that like Luke Cage in 1972 was created at the height of blaxploitation. And I mean, look at him, this big angry black dude with an afro, right? I mean,
tiara.
but I mean, look at where he is now, right? And I've just read, it's like so many black creators that were just like, you know, man, Luke Cage is like the guy, you know, that opened up the door for a lot of people where they're just like, hey, there's somebody that looks like me in a comic book. How awesome is that?
It's like, you know, exploitation doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. I mean, I hate that makes me sound like a total racist, and it's not meant to come off that way, but it's like it opens a lot of doors for things because it allows that to come into other popular culture, and like for those creators and I'll say actors and all that too, since a lot of TV shows and all that will follow those same trends. And it's like, while it's a bad thing, blaxploitation cinema wasn't in itself a bad thing. I mean, that was like black directors as well. I was like,
Gotta start somewhere.
Sweetback's song, I'm not going to say the full name because we can't do that. Shaft, all of those were like, I think most of the crew was black on those as well. In fact, there's that Eddie Murphy film, which was that was on Netflix, that brought him back again recently, where he played I believe the director of Shaft. It's been a while since I've seen that film.
Oh,
You know the one I'm talking about.
it's
an amazing film.
Oh my, it's the one where he's
he played Rudy.
Rudy Ray Moore. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's Dolomite Is My Name. That's
Yes.
what it's called. Yeah. Yeah.
Which was a terrible film, but it's like it opened a lot of doors in Hollywood.
For sure.
Yeah.
In fact, actor Mario Van Peebles comes from that family that started the Shaft series.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I don't think exploitation, following those trends is a bad thing, but it's like, it does lead to some really bad writing at times.
Oh yeah.
To start.
Oh yeah, you know,
Yeah.
that's in line with like writing what's, I'll say, popular or accepted as back then, and they kind of go with it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that the ends justify the means, but again, you know, you had to start somewhere and look at where it is now, right? So, you know, kudos to all those creators that found the strength or motivation or whatever to kind of push the boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if this actor and his series kind of kicked off the blaxploitation stuff. But you know, Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee movie. Jim Kelly is the martial artist, and he had movies that were his own, and stuff, and he had that kind of fro. So, the design of other characters around that time starts to look like that. I don't know if that kicked it off, but
Well, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar he did train with Bruce Lee for a long time. Before that movie even was made, he was training in martial arts.
yeah, but there's also a character, an actor named Jim Kelly, who was a martial artist too.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, hey guys, I got another series that I want to talk about. One of my favorites. It's a company called Unique Studios, and they've got what's called the Unique Universe. It's founded by, not sure how to pronounce his name, but Roy Okupe, founded in 2015, and he's from Lagos, Nigeria. And his books were recently picked up in 2020 by Dark Horse. He signed this 10-book deal to get his books put out. So his first title, again, don't know how to pronounce it, EXO or XO, is the story of Wale Williams. And it's a superhero story about redemption set in a futuristic 2025 Africa. So that future's coming up really soon.
25.
And he's got this like high-tech suit of armor, kind of like Iron Man. And he's so let's see. It says that the novel follows the journey of Wale Williams, an impetuous young man who inherits a suit with superpowers after his father goes missing. Tricked into returning home to Lagoon City, Nigeria, following a 5-year absence, Wale embarks on a journey to investigate his father's mysterious disappearance as he comes to understand the suit's powers. Wale realizes he must restore hope to his city by preventing catastrophic attacks from the sociopathic Aniku, leader of an extremist group called the Creed. And so I got all these original Unique publications rather than the Dark Horse reprints, and they're awesome because they're all signed and stuff. It's got solid artwork in here, nice digital color, and the stories are great. And he really did a lot of universe building. He's got, he's put out several books of EXO. He's got other titles. Windmaker is another one. Malika is another one.
Oh, I'm familiar with that. Oh, that's all part of the same.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's all part of the same universe. And Malika, let me read a little bit about that. That one was great. So Malika Warrior Queen, part 1 by Roy Okupe and Kalu. So this is a comic book about a strong Black woman as the lead character, which is pretty unique in itself. So if you're looking for something different from muscle-bound white dudes, check out this graphic novel. I really enjoyed the story. It's set in Africa around 1500 AD. She's a strong, bold warrior queen that's not afraid to show compassion. So kind of like a Wonder Woman character in some ways. It's a period-based comic with like sword-to-sword battles. It has a bit of magic, a bit of superhero thrown in, lots of combat, good character interaction and development, and establishes mythology and sets the ground for future stories. It has good, solid artwork. Let me see. Oh, there's a cool fight scene.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, and they just have like these great, battles. So this like sets up the early days of the Unique Universe. Well, on our Facebook page, I got a few snapshots in there. Graphic Novel Geeks on Facebook did a review on this, and you can check out some artwork. And super glad to hear that this was picked up by Dark Horse, because I really dug this company. And great to see that it's getting some recognition and movement. Yeah, Unique Universe. Check it out.
I gotta pick that up. I gotta find it.
Yeah, they now that Dark Horse distributing it, it's got pretty good distribution. I think they've got them at like Barnes and Nobles. You can find them on Amazon. Local comic shop, head over there. If they don't have them, ask them to get them. Dark Horse, easy to get. All right. So, I'll just want to mention another one before we get on to anything else, because I would hate for it to go unmentioned. Silver Surfer Ghost Light just came out, and this series was really cool. It's off to a great start. It's created by John Jennings and Valentine Delandro. John Jennings is a professor at UC Riverside. He's an Eisner Award winner. He's a Hugo Award winner. I guess this is his first Marvel comic, and a little unprepared. I don't have a lot of notes on this, but it's really cool. They introduced this character Ghostlight. I guess that he's called. He's kind of has some background in an early story, but at this point with issue number 1, we're not really sure what's going on in the series or who any of these characters are, but it's off to a great start. It's got really strong character development. It's got solid artwork, and super excited to see where it's going to go. I think Joe, you know a little bit about John Jennings too. I know he's got a book coming up called My Superhero is Black, but at this point, there's no release date for that book. But I think you're saying that like he also organizes some conventions or something.
Yeah, no, he's like very much in like the academic community and whatnot, in terms of like, talking about comics and everything. Afrofuturism, horror, stuff like that. And the Black Comics Arts Festival, which happens here in San Francisco, it was happening like every year. The pandemic slowed things down, but it's Martin Luther King weekend, and it's at the Metreon or Yerba Buena Center for the Arts, which is like right next to the Metreon. So sometimes it's in one location or the other. But he's one of the organizers for that event, and I've tabled at that event maybe 7 times.
Nice. Right, cool. So yeah, we just missed it this year, but let's put that on our calendars for next year, January.
There's also a comic book convention called Afro Comic Con.
Oh yeah.
That I haven't been to yet, but I want to go to it. I think the next one is in September, I think.
So yeah, they started, their first one was in 2017. I was involved with it.
Oh, really?
So I tabled there in 2017 and 2018, did not in 2019. The pandemic changed things. And now from what I understand, they do a Children's Day, and they're really focused on a film festival and cosplay, but they don't have like artists with tables anymore.
Oh,
I understand.
Man.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, just a heads up, I guess, as you look more into it. But yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. They made that change, Okay.
Yeah,
right, cool. Well, keep us posted as those come out, Joe. We'll share it with our viewers, make sure that everybody gets a chance to check them out if they want to. All right, cool. Hey, Dylan, did actually, Joe, you had some more that you want to talk about in Noir Caesar?
Yeah, real quick. So Noir Caesar Entertainment is very unique because they are a Black-owned manga company. I'm sure there are probably others, but not very many. They're probably the most well-known, but even then people don't know them. No, the company was founded by Johnny O'Brien. He's a professional basketball player. He played in the NBA for a little bit, but now he just primarily plays overseas. But yeah, no, it's a manga company. They have like over 15 titles.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of ongoings. Their main ones are Exogenesis, like Primus 7, and Try Again. Like Exogenesis, it's like kind of like it's this teenager named Darius, and there's it's this sport called Exogenesis, where it's basically kind of like a gladiator type thing. You wear like an exosuit, and you basically fight, and he's trying to get money to support his family and whatnot. That one is pretty popular. Nicholas Draper Ivy was doing the art for that one, and Nicholas is now doing the art for Static for Milestone. So because it's like a manga style,
Nice.
but so that's why the new Static series kind of looks like a little manga-esque because it's Nick's art style. But
That's
no,
awesome.
yeah, but Noir Caesar, I want to say they've been around since maybe 2016, 2017. They were at Crunchyroll Expo, like the first one. And, you know, they've been branched off into animation lately. I've met Johnny before. I guess I can say I am working on something there, but I can't say anything else.
Ooh, all right.
But yeah, but it's worth checking out. Noir Caesar. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll look into that.
Cool. Thanks. That sounds great.
Oh, we have a chat, by the way.
Okay.
DeathMix13 says t-shirt show off. Show us your t-shirt and deets, if any. What's a deet? Is that like details?
Yeah. All right. Well, I've got this Booster Gold shirt. This is by beardedshirts.com. They make mostly Legion of Superhero stuff, but also have a Booster Gold. So cool.
Got a Wonder Woman shirt here.
Wonder Woman Pride shirt at that.
So I got this here. It's like a collection of a bunch of Black superheroes. I don't remember where I got it. I got it online, but it's like a mix of DC, Marvel, even like Milestone characters. So
It's awesome.
Mine's just an American Heart Association shirt because my sister-in-law works there.
All right, cool. All right. Well, anybody have any other comics that they want to talk about before we get into our movie review?
Yeah, I got one thing, or two things, but I'll talk about one mainly. The Flash of Two Worlds. This is the first time that these discover each other, right? And I'm pretty sure you might have seen those covers where they're running. There's I don't have a picture of the one with me. I think I have it in my box, but it has Jay Garrick running on one side and Barry on the other side. And there's a guy about to get crushed by like a brick or a big part of building. Like, I'm coming, right? And then they get the whole thing of this. Can you see that? You can see the text bubble. Oh, why is it so saturated? Oh, there you go. Can you see that? It says, hey, I'm the Flash. How can you be the Flash? No, I've been the Flash for like 20 years and stuff like that. And this is back when, you know, they ended up, I think Barry Allen ended up vibrating so fast that he shifted phase into the Earth 1, the JSS world, and he met Jay Garrick. But you know, back then they had, you know, the JSA was on one world. Is it still like that now? I don't know. Or is it all merged into one now?
They are just reintroducing the Justice Society into continuity right now. And is that Jeff Johns that's writing that? So right now they're doing this kind of like they're doing different time periods in the comics. So it's like they'll do like, okay, here's what's going on in the 1940s, and then they flash forward to like modern time, and then they flash forward to the future. And so like the Huntress is Batman and Catwoman's daughter, and she's gone into the past. So it's hard to know how they're going to fit into continuity, but they're working on it. That's an exciting journey.
Especially since Helena Bertinelli is back in the comics as well as again in one of the Lazarus Planet one shots. She showed up, so it's like interesting.
Okay, I haven't read that one yet in my stack.
But yeah, I noticed now, you know, like it seemed like I didn't read, you know, I haven't read like everything in this book, but I don't know if back then they had to always face through to talk to each other or not. But now in the Flash comics, it seems like they're all like in like Earth 2. It seems like that, anyways. But you know, they got the old rogues like Captain Cold here, and then they're vibrating to get out of the ice. Right? I guess that's a way to do it. They create enough friction or whatever and melt the ice. But this is a great like introduction to them meeting each other. You know, it's really cool. You got things like doing that tornado with his hand, is carrying Jay Garrick there. So this is a great read to like just see how they meet each other and stuff like that. So
cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, another Flash thing. But I was hoping to go to the comic book store yesterday to buy something, but I was gonna run late to a punk show, so I went to that instead. I got a lot of Flash stuff, like a lot. I got a Flash cereal box too. Look, this is a Crunch Flash. I
All
still
right.
haven't eaten it yet.
Hey, don't eat it too fast.
Yeah, try not to.
Cool, right on. So, okay, then, the other night, the four of us all went and saw the new Marvel movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. So we want to wrap up our show by kind of talking about that. I think that we were going to try to talk about it in general at first, and then maybe at about 12 o'clock, if you don't want spoilers, tune out. Because we will have some spoilers. So, just stop now, stop at 12 o'clock if you don't want any spoilers. So, yeah, Dylan, why don't you start us off with what you thought about the show?
I'll give it a 7 out of 10, but it has problems, and it's problems that I'll talk about more after the 12 o'clock mark, but I enjoyed the film because the cast is fantastic.
Yeah.
And Jonathan Majors steals the show as far as anybody else in that movie goes. The man is a fantastic actor, and I'm glad that he's actually getting a chance to shine in big screen films. And I'm actually excited about King Dynasty and the Secret Wars coming up, but it's not flawless. I'll say that. And it's like, the more I thought about it afterwards, the more I was like, because I saw it twice.
Oh, okay.
Because I saw it opening night because I couldn't wait.
Gotcha.
But the second viewing kind of brought those things to the fore, but we'll talk about those after the fact.
Yeah.
They're not deal breakers by any stretch of the imagination, but
I really liked, the visuals were great in that movie. I love the CG and just the overall concept of the microverse and everything, the way they designed stuff.
Actually, Quantum Realm, they can't use microverse anymore.
Quantum Realm.
Yeah, that's a Hasbro property, right?
Yes.
Whoops. Yes, the Quantum Realm.
No, the visuals are great. It's like,
yeah,
I think the best visuals since Doctor Strange, which I actually saw in 3D, which was I felt not sober after watching that movie. It was so bizarre.
For me, it was the visuals that really made the movie. I have to think that it's Disney having their hands in it that really made it, because it just seemed like I see visuals like this in the Star Wars movies, and there's just all these aliens, kind of remind me of the Cantina and old Star Wars or whatever, but is just so visually appealing. I mean, they just created the quantum realm is it's not Earth, and they did this great job of just making this fantastic world that I was like, wow, this is what I'm into. This is just just visually so great. Just all the different objects floating in the sky, all the different monsters that they had, which were these microorganisms, but now they're these giant things eating each other and running after our heroes. Yeah, that is just fantastic. The visuals did it for me.
Yeah, and I think another favorite thing of mine is the family dynamic between them, Scott and Hope and all.
Scott and Cassie.
Scott and Cassie. That was the best. That was the best.
Yeah, I like that too, but for me, it got a bit over the top. Like Cassie, to me, it seemed like every time they showed her, she was just, Dad, Dad, Dad. And I know you guys said, well, she had some other lines too, but it's just come on, she's just this you know, okay, what a little daddy's girl that all they have her do is scream dad, dad, dad. It's like, come on, develop the character a bit more, show her a little bit stronger. She can do her
No,
own
you're
stuff.
right.
She just doesn't need to be screaming dad all the time throughout the whole movie. So
You're
they
right
could
about
have
that, yeah.
revamped that a little bit, but you know, if yeah, you know, if my dad was Ant-Man, that would be cool. But you know, my dad's cool too. So I mean, I don't know.
They're gonna be like, Dad, Dad,
Dad, dad, dad.
Dad.
No, she should have given him like more of a break because it was kind of like a little annoying that like, you know, Scott clearly saved the world. I mean, if he had not like told the Avengers about the quantum realm, everyone would still be dust. And it's like now, you know, he was an ex-con, like now he's like he has a book, people like him, he's at like the pinnacle of his career. And then Cassie's like, yeah, but like there's still problems and you're not doing anything. It's like
Yeah.
what? And they're like talking to him like he's being a jerk or like narcissistic because of like his book. Really?
You wrote a book?
Yeah, come on, he saved the world. Come on.
He did.
Yeah, I thought that was great, you know, that the daughter really called him out for like, well, you did great things and you can continue doing great things because you're a great person. So why aren't you? But I was a bit torn because like, you know, I just got this summons for jury duty and it's like, man, I get them like every 2 years, right? And I had like 6, 7 years ago, I served on a jury in San Francisco for a month. And it's like, doesn't that fulfill my civic duty for like my entire life? I spent a month on a jury. Why do I have to do it again? Some people never do that. So it's kind of like, I can see it from Ant-Man. It's like, man, he saved the world once. Like he's done. Like, why does he need to do more than that? That fulfills his life mission, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
I see it both ways. I'm a little torn on that.
I didn't think it was his life's mission. It's like because he just wanted to be a dad.
He did. He did.
Right?
He just fell into it by accident. Like all good Ant-Man stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got to say, you know, I haven't read too much Ant-Man, so I don't have a lot to compare it to on canon. It's like, you know, I picked up the new Wasp #1. I think I mentioned on an episode a little while ago, I got this cool like the third appearance of Ant-Man, like comic
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
60s or whatever. But yeah, I don't have too much, you know, I haven't really read a lot of Ant-Man and Wasp stuff because, well, I mean, I don't really know that they've done a lot with him. He's always been kind of a supporting character in the Avengers, right? So that's most of my knowledge about Ant-Man is in that is in, you know, in that format. But you know, I have watched all 3 of the Ant-Man movies and you know, they're all right. For me, I felt that they got progressively better. The first one was kind of I thought the second one was a bit better, and,
Oh,
and
yeah.
this third one I think takes the cake. I think it was really well done and a really exciting movie. I know that not everybody agrees with my opinions on how good all the prior movies were. Joe?
Oh, wow. Oh my God. Like, no, I have not been the biggest fan of the franchise, but don't get me wrong, like I love Paul Rudd. I like him as Scott Lang. It's just funny. It's kind of like Doctor Strange. Like I like Doctor Strange in other movies, and I like Ant-Man when he's in other movies, but their actual solo franchises just haven't done it for me. But yeah, the first Ant-Man, I wasn't that impressed. The second one, I didn't really like at all, and it made me actually appreciate the first one. And so when I went into this one, I already had super low expectations because I'm like, I'm already not a fan of this franchise. You know, I saw some of the bad reviews already, and that MCU movies have been varying in quality since Endgame. So I was already like, okay. And then I was like, well, but Jonathan Majors is in this. Okay, let's go see this movie. And then I was like, oh, it's actually not that bad. Like,
Did you see
I
Loki?
actually defend this movie and say, because it's the lowest rated MCU movie. And I'm like, It's actually not that bad. Like that, the hate for it's unwarranted. And this is from someone who doesn't really like the Ant-Man movies, but I was thoroughly entertained. Yeah, it's not perfect, but I liked it better than the second one. And all the critics, like all the negativity around it, I'm like, okay, people, it's not that bad. Calm down. So no, I had a
Yeah.
good time.
Did you see Loki? Because that's when
Okay.
Jonathan Majors played the. That's what had me excited about this show. This
I have
movie.
the He Who Remains action figure behind me, actually.
I
Oh,
only got the
snap.
Howard the Duck one so far.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I think that this hate is just people getting tired of superhero movies in general. And you know,
Yeah.
I think this is a solid movie in that it's getting,
Oh,
bad reviews.
snap. That's so cool.
Well,
So, yeah.
I can break down the problems that I think are like inherent in the film, but without getting into vitriol and discuss like a lot of streamer YouTubers will do for
Oh,
the
it's
series.
12:02. Do we want to still do our spoiler-free review a little bit or go into details?
Yeah.
It's past 12. We can go to
Spoilers, this is
details.
It's
spoilers.
12 spoiler time.
Spoilers.
Oh, it's details?
Yeah.
Okay, details.
Oh, yeah.
Problem one is the recasting of Cassie.
A little bit. Yeah.
For one,
Yeah,
because
that. I
she,
mean, I don't hate the new actor, but that'd be cool to see the other actor do it too. Yeah.
the other actress had more pathos in her 5-10 seconds of performance in Endgame than this one
Yeah,
in the
I'll
entire
say-
film.
Let's say it felt more like real.
I mean,
Yeah.
there was another Cassie. You mean the little girl from the prior
Not
movies?
just that one. There
No,
was
from-
an
from
adult Cassie in
Endgame.
Endgame.
Oh, okay. I don't even remember her, so I'd say she's forgettable. I'm all right with the recast.
Oh,
I
wow.
thought, except for
Wow.
the
that was a touching scene, though.
You know,
That
I
was
thought
like
the
the most
Cassie
touching scene of
actress
all
is good.
time.
What's
I don't
that?
hate the new actor. I think she's all right, but it was a switch. And I didn't even know what was happening either.
She was very cringe, is unfortunately. It's like the way she played Cassie is like,
It's very teenage.
yes. And it's like I think that kind of rubbed people a little bit of a wrong way. Other problems. The crew who've been in all those films like had no appearance except for David
Oh yeah, the
played the blobby monster guy.
the
Or voiced
kid-
him.
like Scott's team. That I would have
Oh.
loved if they were in the movie.
But I think my main problem is if watching it, you can tell that they're shooting without a script most of the time now. Because
But-
Marvel has started doing the thing with test audiences and they're changing things up to 2 weeks before release.
Well, isn't that actually traditionally the Marvel way of making comics? I mean, they have Stan Lee comes up with like a 30-second idea, and then Jack Kirby draws a bunch of pages, and then Stan Lee goes in and writes words. That's the Marvel method of comics, and they've touted it for years. And
Yeah,
DC
but when you
tried
rely
it.
on
and
visual effects too much, because visual effects artists are overtaxed and overworked now as it is, and there's not enough of them to go around. That's why some of the TV shows will look so crap for Marvel, is because there's not enough visual effects artists and the time to do it. I mean, I loved Captain Marvel as a show, but it's like there's very little effects in that show.
Ms. Marvel.
Yeah, sorry, Miss Marvel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
But it's and it's why was MODOK in this?
I think
Yeah.
it's put there.
MODOK's never been tied to King ever. The
Yeah.
two never met.
I was confused by that too. MODOK is part of AIM, right? So
They already used
Yeah,
AIM
he's
in
the
Iron
creation
Man
of
3.
yeah, well, that means AIM's already established, right? So it's all
AIM was
right for
established
them
in
to
Iron Man
have
3.
a follow-up. So yeah, I was confused by that too. It was cool to see MODOK and funny to see MODOK, and I thought that they pulled it off. It was super creepy, but
Well, it didn't
MODOK is
look
super
right.
creepy, right?
Dude,
So
when they had
That was like the worst visual effect in the film, unfortunately, because it's like sometimes it was 3D modeled, sometimes it was just stretched and blown up, like when they had less time to get that effect in there. So MODOK was very
Yeah, I was about to say when they had the cover, it looked good. But when they showed his stretched out human face, I just could not take him seriously. I was like, what is this?
Well, like I mean, for me, reading MODOK in the comics, you can't take him seriously. He is like
Oh, you can't.
the
You
biggest
can't.
joke
No.
supervillain ever. I mean,
Dude, he was attached to Galaxy's butt one time.
But he
Like,
didn't feel
Galaxy's butt.
dangerous, which is what MODOK should feel like.
does
I mean, Jack Kirby comics and all that, like MODOK felt dangerous.
except I don't know. I mean, I thought he always felt like a joke. Mechanized organism designed only for killing. I mean, come on, man. I just read these West Coast Avengers by Kelly Thompson, and it's about Brodock, where he's this bio something organism designed only for kissing, and he still has a bigger than usual head, but he's all chiseled and good looking. So, like, you know, being like this genetic scientist or whatever, he gave himself a much prettier body.
Oh my god.
That was just hilarious.
There's Modam as well. I
Modam,
forget
what's
what that
that?
one stood for. But that was a female MODOK.
Okay.
That was around in the 80s, I want to say. But there's that. Bill Murray was wasted. Why hire Bill Murray to play nobody that dies in 5 minutes?
They put their, you know, they did that with another actor in another Marvel movie too. That kind of what movie was that? We talked about it on
The one with the collector.
Oh,
yeah, I think so.
yeah, Benicio del Toro.
But he's still alive.
No, because he in Endgame he was no Infinity War, because remember they went to nowhere and he was there talking to them, but then you found out it was an illusion by Thanos, and so he was already dead.
Oh,
He was already dead.
I didn't think the elders could be killed.
Okay, well, I don't know. Maybe MCU will say something. I don't know.
Maybe. But yeah, it's like but Bill Murray had played one of the other elders. There's like 5 others that they could have been. It's like that would have made sense with their casting conventions. It's like Benicio, weird sort of Hollywood actor.
Mhm.
There was the Grandmaster, the other one, which was played by
Oh yeah, yeah.
Jeff Goldblum, noted Hollywood weirdo, and Hollywood weirdo Bill Murray was like,
Yeah.
they would have kept with tradition, at least with that one, and he had the white hair.
yeah.
Had. But I mean, all in all, it's like I enjoyed the film, but it's like, yeah, there's some cracks showing in Marvel with the like changing things, because yes, Janet Van Dyne got to shine in this film, but that's because they cut most of the scenes with Hope, from what I could tell.
Yeah, I forgot Hope was even in the movie, right? The Wasp, right?
Yeah, because it's like obviously they're setting her up to be the co-lead in like the other
Yeah.
films, and now she's relegated to like mom and barely talking about anything.
Yeah,
It's like I could tell the original ending was for her and Scott to be stuck in the quantum realm.
they should have maybe did that.
That would have been interesting.
Was there some kind of controversy with the actress or something that they
Yeah,
cut
she
her?
was tweeting out for some group that she was speaking up for and all that, was actually condemned as terrorists by Canadian Parliament. That she was like championing their cause and all that. And
Evangeline Lilly?
And
'Cause I remember I heard she was
I
like,
think
you
it's still
know,
there.
anti-jab.
yeah, I know that.
That's Luis, why Luis wasn't in the film. And
Okay.
Shuri was also that way.
Yeah, but Evangeline, I heard she was like that too. So I was like,
Was
cutting her
she-
screen time. You bring up a good point. Maybe why she didn't do much. I didn't think about all this.
Yeah, because this was filmed during the pandemic. Let's
Right,
not forget.
right.
So it's like,
Was she anti-vaccination or was she just?
I think she's an
I
anti-vaxxer.
believe
She's
she
also
is.
like kind of like Shuri's character or actress, kind of
Yeah.
going off the rails a little bit, supporting groups that are just like a little bit
Yeah.
not so great.
Huh. Okay.
Interesting.
So I mean, it's like there's definitely points in the film where it feels disjointed. It's because that's where they cut stuff and change stuff up until, like I said, 2 weeks before the end, before release date.
Wow, that's pretty cutting it to the wire.
2 weeks.
Yeah, they've done that with a lot of films, actually.
Well, I guess the editor had a lot to do. The editor. Oh wait, no, to change it.
You're changing
Poor
it again.
VFX artist. Jesus.
That
It's
too.
why James
Yeah.
Gunn is like kind of like not sticking with Marvel. The firing thing kind of like rubbed him raw, but I mean he's working with them like gladly, but it's the shooting without a script and like them wanting to change things up to the last minute that he doesn't like. It's why he said under his control of DC's not going to be shooting without a script.
Of
They're
course,
committing
James
to
Gunn feels like that. He's
actors
a
and
writer.
storylines.
But
James
wait,
Gunn's a legit writer. Of course, he's like, no, we need a damn script.
but wait, wasn't like with Suicide Squad, they had like filmed it and then they changed like 95% of it like a couple months before it came out or something?
That was the first
Mm.
one.
Yeah.
95%.
Like
That's like the whole
pretty
movie.
much the entire movie is my understanding. Like they just redid the whole thing.
Well, that's the
because-
first one. That's not the
Yeah.
one James Gunn was involved with.
Okay. All right.
No, that's pretty bad. Okay.
Yeah, my understanding was it was kind of like, one of the serious grim and gritty DC movies, and then they're like, we need to make this more fun, like Guardians of the Galaxy.
God, yeah.
Yeah, it's like that first one. It's like that's what they say release the Ayers cut, which I don't think actually exists, because the Snyder cut didn't exist either. He had to like spend $200 million more to like make that 4-hour Justice League, which
Yeah, he had to finish
wow.
like VFX and like I think he reshot maybe a couple things, but
shot a bunch of new stuff
yeah.
for that one. It's like, and for a thing that turned out to be like, very few people and just like AI bots that they programmed to like make it seem like the Snyderverse was a bigger deal than it was.
Hmm.
It's the problem with Hollywood movies in general, with comics and all that. It's like the loudest voices that are calling out for this stuff, like, being like not like the comics, are people that don't read the comics.
Yeah,
So-
I mean that's definitely a problem with the industry, right? I mean, most comics are selling. I don't even want to say 20,000 copies now. Most comics are probably selling 10,000 copies max, right? And it's just like, but you got the whole graphic novels. I mean, what are the numbers on graphic novel figures? I mean, that's where you get them in the bookstore. But yeah, that's not who's driving the movies anymore. That's always where the starting point is. But if a movie company is going to be trying to make a product that is appealing to comics fans, all 10,000 of us, they're going to lose a lot of money, right? So they unfortunately do have to make something that appeals more to the mainstream so they can, spend millions of dollars on these movies.
Well, it's like them doing Secret Wars. It's like the in-depth or the cap off for this one is like Secret Wars by Hickman only really worked because they had 70, 80 years of monthly ongoing stories to tie into and build up from. It's like, I just don't think there's enough history to do Secret Wars, really.
Yeah,
I mean, why?
I mean, Secret Wars is 85 and Marvel really started in like 63. So they only
They're
had
doing
like
the new Secret
22 years. Oh,
They're
the
gonna be doing
new
the new
Secret
Secret
Wars. Okay, I
The
didn't read
Hickman one
those.
with the Fantastic Four and Doom.
Hickman, you mean the Walking Dead guy?
Jonathan Hickman, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
Jonathan
Okay.
Hickman. You're
Yeah,
No,
thinking
you're
of
thinking of Kirkman. That's Walking Dead.
Oh, Kirkman. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But no,
Okay.
Hickman's Secret Wars, and that was good.
but do they have like enough to do in actual Secret Wars, in my opinion?
Are
It's
you
like
talking
what
about
to bring what?
for the new Avengers movie, right? After Kang Dynasty? I don't
Yeah.
know. but did they have enough to do Civil War though?
Yeah.
Civil War, I mean, they boiled it down, but
Yeah.
it's like they don't have Doom, so they're doing Kang instead. I think they want to do it because they want to bring in like Tom Cruise Iron Man, who was like tied to that movie at one point and all that, like
It's
for the
multiple.
alternate realities and all that. It's like, I don't like this at all.
Yeah. Maybe they should have started with Contest of Champions instead of Secret Wars.
Maybe they should have involved the Fantastic Four and had them actually be an actual thing, because I don't even know if that's coming out before Secret Wars.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
supposed to come out. I don't know when though. Yeah.
It's like, and you don't have the mutants, which are kind of another big part of that, since there's just like, I don't get why everyone's clamoring for Secret Wars when you don't have enough history of the actual Marvel Cinematic Universe to do it.
Yeah. Why would you want Secret Wars without the X-Men?
Because the
in
name,
it?
because that book sold.
Yeah, they should. Oh, well, they'll make the choices that they make, but yeah.
But then like, it's actually, since I do know the answer to this one, since we talked about it, how their shrinking and growing powers actually worked in the quantum realm, since it's like you can't get any smaller. The quantum realm is actually a separate alternate universe that you can only access by getting really small, and then you're back to your normal size again. That's like how they explained it in the comics with the microverse, and quantum realm is obviously the microverse and everything but name.
Yeah.
So,
And so, like, I don't know, they didn't really mention that in the movie, right? It's like, is that a thank goodness they didn't spend, like, give the short explanation of that, or did that take away from people's enjoyment? Like, this doesn't
think-
make any sense. I mean,
I think they would take that away. I think people like the shrinking small thing and finding a whole world down there. I think that's if they changed it to the way the comics has it, they'd be like, oh, just trapped in another universe,
And it's also how Bug is like normal size now, like when you see him, since he actually is owned by Marvel, since that was never a Micronauts toy.
uh-huh.
I think he was in Guardians of the Galaxy for a while, and then I don't think he's been seen since, but
Yeah, they had a female character of that species in Captain Marvel. I don't remember the character's name, but yeah. Huh.
So I say regarding the movie again. I think one of my favorite parts about it is Kang, like the way they portray him. That blue
Yeah.
floating disc, his mask. I mean, wow, because like
Yeah.
I've seen him in the video games with that circle and he floats on it and stuff like that. Like his performance is really good.
Yeah. And I'd read that Matt and I, Tatsuo and I both read that Kang trade paperback. I forget what it's called, but it's a collection of the recent Kang miniseries. And I like the line in the movie where he said, "You don't know what I've been through," right? And it's just like, cool, man. I mean, they're setting it up like there could be a Kang TV show. I mean, man, there's so much that they could do with Kang. I think that's really awesome. I'm really looking forward to where they're going to go.
Should we talk about the end credits scene or not?
yes.
Okay.
We're deep in spoiler talk, so
Yeah. I love they have all the different versions of them. They have the Pharaoh one and that's like
Rama-Tut,
the first one.
Silver Centurion, and Immortus, which Immortus looked the worst, and this looked so bad. But Rama-Tut looked pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's like-
the Pharaoh one, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, here's the problem that I have with Kang. There's not many great Kang stories to start, or Immortus or Rama-Tut for the most part. It's like, I think Avengers Forever is the best Kang story of all time. From like 98, I think, with Carlos Pacheco art and Kurt Busiek writing it, but I haven't read the newer stuff because, like I said, I've banned a lot of Marvel from post One More Day.
We can get into that another time. One more day.
That's been how long it's been since I've really read Marvel. Although I did pick up that Fantastic Four book, but that was more for Alex Ross's art.
Yeah,
Great
full
artist, by the
circle.
way. Love Alex Ross.
The
Oh,
coloring
so
was fantastic.
I heard this. I read this. Two things. Shang-Chi 2. There's talk about him leading the Agents of Atlas, the Asian team. And there's now talk of different versions of Kang might be in the movie of Shang-Chi 2. The regular time, yeah. So he's gonna fight Kang. That'd be kind of cool. Probably beat him.
How do you beat King of Shang-Chi? That's like,
I don't think they ever meet, right? They never meet.
it's like,
I'm unaware.
and they killed the good version of King that we like.
Now it's all those weird ones. Yeah.
Because I don't know. I'm kind of,
Well, he's a time traveler.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
yeah, and there's also 1,000,005 different versions of King that were there.
yeah, like what? Way too many. Like what? I know time is
Yeah.
immoral, but I mean, come on now.
Well, it's
Should we
different
make, like, a
timelines.
Stadium of Kings?
Yeah.
It's all the different timelines.
That's too many.
Because remember, they came back, all the branching timelines came back at the end of Loki season 1 when the Enchantress killed Loki. Or killed He Who Remains.
Sylvie.
I hated that. It's like, I get why they did it, but it's like I wanted my Amora Enchantress because she's an awesome character.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like I'm kind of like, I don't know that they have a plan.
Right, like an episode of Lost.
That's exactly the point. It's like the mystery box thing that what is that? Who created that show? That's I can't think of that director's name.
Is it Lindelof or
but the actual
J.J.
the director of Star Wars, 1 and
J.J.
3 in the new series.
J.J. Abrams.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Oh,
likes
yeah,
the
yeah.
mystery box thing because he's like, what could be in there? It could be anything, but it's like, you know what? It's not a plan from beginning to middle to end because it's like he's not good at endings. He never has been.
Okay.
So it's like it's one of my problems with the shooting without a script thing
Yeah.
or a plan.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, when there's more Kangs than superheroes, how are the superheroes going to beat them? That's a big
That's
lofty
the
thing, man. I mean, there were a
that's
lot
the
of
thing
Kangs there, a
with
lot of Kangs.
yeah.
You gotta get
That's the
rid of
thing that's
Kang
left to
Prime.
exist.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I think probably a lot of infighting with the Kings will probably kill off a good more than 3/4 of them.
There's still a lot left.
Yeah.
Well, you have infinite Kings because you have infinite timelines because every choice, every second for every person branches off in like 2-3 different directions. So it's like,
Yeah.
that's why I don't think there's a real plan in place because that's like, how do you explain that to like the layman who's not been
Well,
involved with comics forever and like
Yeah.
knows this
I
stuff?
mean,
And
are they going to bring in Infinite Avengers just like what Aaron's doing in Avengers currently?
I
They
think
got like
that's
the
what they're trying
Avengers
to do for
1
Secret
million
Wars.
BC and
That's where like
yeah.
you'll have multiple Iron
And-
Men, where it's like Robert Downey Jr. is supposedly coming back because everything he's done lately has failed. So
What-
it's like everything Robert Downey Jr. has done after leaving Marvel has failed.
Yeah, I mean they're
Uh,
they're gonna kill themselves if they're gonna bring in an infinite number of Avengers as superheroes and stuff, right? That's the
mean,
biggest
no.
complaint that I hear talking to people that don't collect comics because
Yeah.
I talk to people about comic movies a lot, and they don't read comics, and it's just like there's too many characters. They don't know who they are. They're not doing a good enough job of establishing who they are anymore, and they just can't keep them all straight. Like my parents say this, my coworkers say this. Everybody's just like, who are all these people? I mean, like the four of us, we know all the characters, but it's a far cry from like when they started and they're like, here is one guy, he is Iron Man, here is his story, learn about him and enjoy his story. And now it's
here's
just like
the
they're
4
just
other characters
throwing
you need to know, like Rhodey, Pepper.
yeah, but now they're just throwing so many characters in, and like nobody who's not a graphic novel geek can keep them straight. So if they're going to introduce like a billion different Avengers, they're gonna kill themselves.
That and it's like if you don't know the history of like what the rumors are, like where they're going to bring Tom Cruise in as Iron Man since he was attached to the film at one point.
Was
It's
he?
like, yeah, back in the 80s, they were going to
Oh.
do an Iron Man film, and Tom Cruise wanted to do it.
Isn't he a little short to be a stormtrooper?
Well, that's why he stands on a box and like they have Kelly like from Top Gun punch down so that. But yeah, it's like I think Feige needs like 2 assistants, and I think they kind of need to break up the worlds and like have those 3 working together to kind of keep their sections straight and working together perfectly, because it's like the quality control is not what it used to be with the TV shows going on and them trying to do 2-3 movies a year.
Yeah,
it's like
They're-
one man can't. That's why DC hired 2 guys to work together to run the
yeah,
future state.
and we
Like-
see this destroying all the things that we love when the corporations get involved and they want to make money and they pump out too much stuff too fast. And it just they're gonna ruin it. It happens all the time with all the things.
Because my problem with the new
Yeah.
52 is like, let's release 52 books because for some reason we have this 52 number that we're just married to
And when it started out, there were a lot of titles that I wanted to read, but it's like I can't afford to buy and I don't have the time because I'm not just like some 16-year-old kid with no job, no life, whatever. Like I've got a job, I've got family and relationships to maintain. I don't have time to read 52 books and like so it's just like, yeah, man, I couldn't buy them all. That was just ridiculous. What the heck were they thinking?
and just like the changes that they made for no reason, like the Wallace West thing, which was like Dan DiDio saying, I hate Wally West. Get rid of it. Let's like just make him black and like have a token black guy in the shit that book. It was like, I mean, I hate saying that word and like, but it's what Wallace West was when he started. You know, it's
Yeah,
like,
Yeah, I mean they hopped on that, and just, it didn't make sense, and it was just written poorly. Like, nah.
yeah,
But it's better now though.
they did a lot of arbitrary diversification, I think, but it's like looking what we were talking about in the 70s, like you got to start somewhere. So
Sure.
you know
do that now.
yeah, it's like they're too big now to do that. I mean, it's like Marvel in the 70s was like maybe releasing 20 books a month, I
Yeah.
think, at the time. So it's like it was a lot easier to like kind of pull that, and they only had them. Well, they drove themselves to bankruptcy, but that was like 20 years later. But it's it's definitely a problem, and one that I'm kind of like, I don't know how they could solve that, because well, they got rid of Dio, so I think they actually have cut down the books since then. And like, but Dio, it's like for all the bad like publicity he gets, he did a lot of good things for creators, because it's like he took the brunt of everything. But
yeah, I'm a fan of Dan DiDio. I think that why I've read by him, it's good. I think that once they got rid of him, that they've been making a lot of bad decisions.
well, yes, but it's like there's reasons that they got rid of him, mainly for putting like AT&T's like interests before the actual characters and all that, but the whole 5G initiative that nobody liked. Nobody liked what was happening with that. No one likes the idea of an actual timeline going on, because you can't do it anymore, because if you actually age your characters and like show like when this all happened, Batman becomes unworkable, and then that becomes it's
Yeah.
like, what do you do? So it's like
Yeah.
you kind of need the shifting timelines and restarts, unfortunately.
Yeah, you really do. That's the only way these comics work. Right. Well,
Oh.
12:30. Maybe we should wrap this on up, guys.
Yeah. But go see Ant-Man and the Wasp. It actually is better than a lot of people are making it seem.
Yeah, definitely go see it. Yeah.
I agree. I recommend it. Check it on out. And I think a big theater experience is needed for this. There were a lot of big shots that looked really cool.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for joining us, everybody. Before we forget, as we mentioned, we've got a Facebook group, Graphic Novel Geeks, that you can join. Get all when we're going to do a show, get notifications. And hopefully we'll also do some reviews about different comics in there. Or you can ask questions. We've got our Graphic Novel Geeks YouTube channel is up. So, check that out. Subscribe. If you missed some past episodes, you can check that out. We'll always post our live stream. Like and subscribe. Yeah.
And comment.
And we'll be back. Our next show is going to be on March 12th, and we're going to be featuring some underground indie comic creator, John Pogrelskin, I think is how you say his name, and he'll be talking about his upcoming indie comic Claws. So join us, and if you have any questions, comments, want to have your work reviewed, or want to get interviewed on our show, reach out to us, geeks at goblinscomics.com. You can find that at contact info on our YouTube, Facebook pages, and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot, everyone. We'll talk to you next time.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us for the show, and we'll see you later.